India is currently debating, grappling whether genetic modification, genetic engineering should be introduced in foods and should be made widely available to consumers and farmers. I'm standing at a very special place. Behind me, all the mustard you see is genetically modified mustard or GM mustard. I have with me Professor Deepak Pental, a professor at the University of Delhi in the South Campus, and the person who has developed this special variety of mustard, which is currently being debated very heavily in the Supreme Court of India. There is no stay on it, which is why the plants exist in the fields. Professor Pental, what is special about these mustard plants which we have right behind us?
What we have done is use the variability or available in mustard between exotic lines and Indian lines to make hybrids. And hybrids tend to give more yield than the varieties. So this hybrid has been developed using divergent material, and it has about 20 to it will give 20 to 30% more yield in this first generation hybrid that you are looking at, DMH11.
This is a genetically modified plant right behind us, which we see.
Yeah.
Does it look any different? To me, it doesn't.
No, it has been modified only to make male sterile lines and restorer lines for hybrid seed production. Otherwise, it is the same as is if we make handmade hybrid. If we make it, it will look very similar to that.
No, there are mustard plants all around us. It looks very similar.
No, I mean it has to look very similar because you have not fiddled with the basic genes of the mustard plant. You have only introduced 3 more genes. There are about 1 lakh genes in mustard plant. That is when we did sequencing, we found it out that it is more than 1 lakh. So this is you are adding only 3 genes at a specific tissue to make male sterile lines and restorer lines for hybrid seed production. That's the only genetic engineering that has been done.
Now, is the seed from this, can it be eaten? Is the leaf, can the leaves be used for saag? Is it very similar to whatever normal mustard plants you and I have seen, other than this very special plant?
Same properties. Tests have shown that it has the same composition for all the traits that it was tested for, just like normal varieties. The only genetic engineering has been done is to develop a system for hybrid seed production. That's all.
And hybrids give us better yield.
Better yield, surely. This is just the beginning. This was the first hybrid that we developed in 2002. There are more in line, as you have seen in the field here. So many lines with interesting characters like early flowering, compact height, but they are all mustards. They have the essential properties that all the mustard plants have.
Why does India need this particular DMH11 or the genetically modified mustard?
We need to increase the yield of mustard. That will bring more profit to the farmers. But even more important is that the country has such a big deficit of edible oils. Almost 60% of our requirement is being imported right now. So with such a large population on the rural side, we have to be more productive, and we have to fulfill all our needs in edible oils from our soil only.
How much edible oil are we importing, and what is the worth of that
oil? Around 13 to 14 million tons. We are importing about 10 to 11 million tons we produce. And due to recent increase in the edible oil prices in the global market, in 21-22 we imported 156,000 crore worth of edible oils.
I mean, you must be joking. 156,000 crores.
That's what I have seen from the ministry's records.
That is a whopping figure.
Well, I think after maybe hydrocarbons and defense equipment, this may be the highest expenditure India is doing on importing on imports for a commodity.
And we have lots of land in India where mustard could be grown. Is that correct?
Right now, it is grown in those areas only where wheat and wheat cannot be grown because wheat is more water consuming. So mustard is the crop of dryland areas. But if the productivity increases, I believe it will spread to other high production agroecologies like Punjab and Haryana and in western UP even. And of course, there should be a scope for expanding it in eastern India. But there, I must tell you, besides hybrids to increase the yield per se, we have to put a lot of emphasis on disease resistance also, because otherwise the disease will finish off the yield increase that we have done. So if we work on all these fronts, there's no reason why mustard cannot jump from 6 million to about 9 to 10 million tons,
No.
10 million hectares.
Now you said we are importing a lot of the edible oil, and which a lot of it is mustard oil. So is the oil which we are importing all or most of it genetically modified oil made from genetically modified mustard plants which we are importing?
We don't import too much of mustard oil because mustard is a crop of India only. All over the world, its sister crop rapeseed is grown extensively, and in Canada they call it canola. So canola oil is sold as a premium oil in our shops also. But major imports is palm oil, which is full of saturated fatty acids, is not really nutritionally very good. The other imports are for soybean oil in a big way, and almost all soybean coming from Latin America and United States and from the Americas is GM.
So most of the oil which we are importing is already GM. So in our food system,
Soybean particularly.
we already have lots of genetically modified edible oil which is floating around, other than cottonseed oil, which we also consume.
Cottonseed and soybean mostly.
So why?
Even maize oil, corn oil, which we may be getting from the American, South America or North American continent, will be mostly GM because most of the soybean, 95% of their crop is genetically modified.
So why is there so much opposition? What is the fear in the minds of people? Something to do with herbicide tolerance. What is herbicide tolerance, and why do we have that herbicide tolerance in these plants which are behind us?
No, as I showed you in different plots, when you make, how you can increase the number of male parent, the bar star line, by just selfing it, because mustard self pollinates very easily. But when you go to make hybrid seed, what do you cross? The male sterile line to multiply it. You have to cross it with a normal line, and when you cross it with normal line and harvest the seed from the male sterile line, in the next generation it will segregate 1:1 fertile and sterile. So I want to get rid of the fertile plants from that, so that my sterile plants of Varuna, say example, Indian line, crosses with the exotic line, which is also growing in the plot. So I have to spray herbicide there to get rid of the fertile lines, fertile lines from the male sterile
From the plot.
from the plot.
Now, when we do that, what is wrong? What herbicides are used for other crops? I'm told 7,000 crores worth of herbicides are already being used. So, what is the fear in the minds of people who are opposing the introduction of?
We have the lowest usage of agrochemicals in the world, similar to Africa, and we are losing a lot of our crop productivity due to lack of quality agrochemicals. Herbicides will become necessary as the labor in the rural side is going to be more and more scarce. So one, you need agrochemicals for all kind of pests, insects, diseases, fungi, bacterial diseases, and for weeds. Pests are put under, all these are put under the category pest. But you can have genetic solutions for diseases, maybe for insects also, like BT cotton, but you will never have solution for genetic solution for removing weeds. Weeds have to be either done manually, or you have to use herbicides. And all over the world, particularly in larger farms, they have no other choice but to use herbicides. So one of these days we will also, this is already moving in, because in intensively cultivated areas, you need to get rid of the weeds to prepare the land for the next crop, and so on and so forth. So, it's inevitable that we will have to use herbicides to get rid of the weeds. Otherwise, all the inputs you are giving in the field are going to, to the weeds rather than to the crop.
But this particular crop which is behind us, in the farmer's field, will it need any herbicide treatment?
As far as mustard is concerned, it is not as affected by weeds as are the rainy season crops. For example, in rainy season, weeds proliferate more than the winter season. And also, as you will see, the canopy becomes so profuse that very little can grow underneath it. So farmers are currently using pre-emergence herbicides, which have been allowed by the authority which allows these chemicals to be used on a particular crop. So herbicides are already being used.
Now, the whole thing is being discussed in the Supreme Court of India. It has been going on. You've been researching it for the last 2 decades. Is there any message you have for the larger Indian public on why GM mustard should be cleared and into the farmer's field as soon as possible?
Some of the countries have taken up GM crops. A few others, like European countries, have not. But it's a political decision. Even the European scientific organizations have said that whatever has been released is absolutely fine and has no repercussions for human health or animal health or the environment. In fact, in the United States, where herbicide-tolerant crops are grown, they have done wonders with conservation tillage. You can poke the seed directly into the field and not open it up and plow it. So it all depends upon, it's more of a political decision rather than economically it makes sense. And I think we need to go to the general public and tell them that all the tests which are required to see the toxicity or allergenicity or the composition, we spent public money around to the tune of 8 crores in doing all the tests, even though these tests had been done on rapeseed, where this technology is deployed in Canada, Australia, and the United States. That data was available to us, but still our regulatory authorities thought that we should have our own data and our own experience. And in the process, we have developed many facilities, and we have shortlisted many institutions where we are as competent in doing biosafety studies as anywhere abroad.
Well, I see a lot of bees in this plot behind me, and the people who oppose a genetic modified mustard say it will affect the bee population. Do you see any difference? Because I see lots of small bees, big bees, all kinds of bees buzzing around. In fact, there's a buzz all around.
No, the seed set even tells you that the bees are visiting, because there's not a single sterile pod on these plants. So the bee was just a red herring, because in Canada this technology has been used in rapeseed from 1996, in the United States from 2002, and in Australia from 2003. So millions of hectares, about 10 million hectares would be under rapeseed with the Barnes Barstar system-based hybrids. Nothing has happened in the last 20 years there. In fact, bees are even more colonies are there than earlier. Uh, the only thing is that bees are becoming susceptible to viral diseases and a mite. Australia thought they were free of that mite, but recently the mites attacked their honeybee. So we will have to take care that honeybee that we keep and domesticated, they are kept in hygienic conditions and properly.
Now, have you personally eaten any of this mustard which is grown behind us? Have you tasted the oil? Have you used it?
No, it has not been grown in that quantity that we use it. But nobody, I mean, there is no protein in the oil anyway. So the oil cannot be any different from the normal mustard oil we eat.
And what about the leaves? Because sarso ka saag bhi to khate hain.
Well, I mean, there is no point in saying that I can, of course, make the leaf, but we have put the trial for the first time after the environmental release, and we have to see the yield things. GEAC has also asked us to do some bee experiments because if some people are worried, let's remove their worries. So we are all for it.
Any message for the Supreme Court of India which is hearing the case? Because right now the government of Prime Minister Modi seems to be very strongly backing and in favor of getting the GM mustard out into the farmer's field.
No, the court will make their own judgment. Government has taken a policy decision, and the policy decision, I believe, has been taken to make India more Atmanirbhar or self-sufficient. And it's a tragedy that we import so much edible oils. We can use that foreign exchange for something else. And also our farmers will not be happy if there is no increase in their productivity. We all need to be, you want to be more productive and get more out of our labor. Now they are doing all the practices on mustard. So if they can get 20-30% more yield, I think farmers will be very happy, and they will see that something is being done for them also in science and technology.
20 years? Too long?
Well, actually this thing became too controversial because some of the countries at the political policy level decided not to go into this area. And I can understand Europe because their population is not increasing. They import a lot of food and feed because the balance of payment problem. They are exporting so much, and if they don't import, the other countries will go bankrupt. So they have decided that they will wait and watch, but they are continuing doing this. Even China indulged in wait and watch on it, but now they are releasing. And you know very well that how much research work they are doing on crops in terms of genome editing and genetic engineering. So I think they are the next ones who are going to get into it in a big way.
So you think we need this low input and high efficient, very good quality agriculture in a big way in the country?
Well, that's the only way. Whatever land is under agriculture, that should be used in such a manner that it is highly productive. Whatever land remains can be utilized for other purposes, like we need industrial growth, we need all kind of people want to live in urban cities. We may have to seed some cities also in the country. So some of the land has to be spared actually. And the land can be only spared if your present land under cultivation gives you high output with the inputs remaining the same. By the way, this hybrid for giving 20 to 30% more does not require, or we have not put a single grain of fertilizer more, or in terms of water any more inputs.
So this genetically modified mustard plant is safe?
Absolutely, to the best of my knowledge.
And you think India and Indian farmers and Indian consumers should embrace it?
Indian farmers will adopt it very quickly. consumers will have to be educated a little bit because the urban population has always some worries and doubts about what the rural side does. But the farmers will take it up in no time.
So that was Professor Deepak Pental, the scientist who made this genetically modified mustard, which is right behind us. It is made in the public sector, made by the University of Delhi. Currently, India's apex body from the Ministry of Environment has cleared its use as for a selected purpose in several trial sites. There are still some experiments to be done, but the debate is on in the Supreme Court of India. And I'm sure the Supreme Court will use its judgment in a manner which benefits India and gives India self-sufficiency in edible oils. From this special plot where genetically modified mustard is being grown on a trial basis, Palav Bagla.